talking about gauze. Gauze is a wonderful way to add texture to your watercolor painting. It can create really nice linear, unique texture. I learned this technique from Caroline Holman's paid courses, so obviously I won't be able to go into details of how to use the gauze to get the nice linear lines. However, there was one thing that I've discovered that was really interesting. Caroline Holman says that mineral-based paints are better for this technique than dye-based paints. However, I know that her go-to paint for using with gauze is manganese blue, and I also know that she uses manganese blue hue. Now that is a phthalo blue, which is not a mineral. With the manganese blue hue, you get this kind of texture. Let's see if you can see it better. So that's where the gauze was, and you put manganese blue hue on top, and it leaves these trails of lines. However, when I was painting a different painting, which is this, which I haven't finished yet, I noticed that ultramarine blue goes insanely intense if you use the gauze technique on. We all know that ultramarine blue isn't the most intense color paint in the world, and yet when I do a gauze thing, it becomes incredibly intense. Ultramarine blue isn't a mineral either, so I was starting to get really confused, and I've decided that the best way to solve this is if I just do some experiments with different colors and see what happens. So that's what we're going to do today in this video. Now, I've prepared some sheets of watercolor that I always use for big pieces, which is the Bockingford 535 GSM watercolor paper. It's in the cold press, and for big projects I use this because it's nice and thick and it doesn't bow. I thought the best place to start, because you just have to pick somewhere to start, will be my palette. So I am going to be testing all the colors that are currently on my watercolor palette, plus several other colors that I am contemplating on putting into my palette, and see how they behave. Also, I have thrown in some other colors that I'm quite interested in trying. So we'll see what happens. The papers have now dried, so we can go ahead and peel the gauze off to see what's been happening under the gauze. Sheet 1 is made up of mostly colours that I already have on the palette, so let's have a look and peel these. First, I'm going to go through what colours I have. This is Aureolin by Holbein, Quinacridone Gold by Daniel Smith, Quinacridone Burnt Orange by Daniel Smith, Scarlet Lake by Holbein, Pyrrole Rubin by Holbein, Quinacridone Rose by Daniel Smith, Bordeaux by Daniel Smith, Perylene Violet by Daniel Smith, Quinacridone Violet by Holbein, Rose of Ultramarine by Daniel Smith, Carbazole Violet by Daniel Smith, Ultramarine Violet by Schmincke, Ultramarine Deep by Holbein, Ultramarine Blue by Dan from PenholderArtUK, and Indanthrone Blue by Daniel Smith. What I'm noticing from this sheet is that the colours that contain ultramarine blue, otherwise known as sodium aluminium sulfosilicate, do much better at getting the colour down. What's really interesting is the rose of ultramarine. Now this pigment is made up of quinacridone rose and the ultramarine blue, and what's happened is that the quinacridone rose has gone into the back, seeped into the rest of the paper, but the ultramarine blue has stuck to the gauze. It's a much deeper, darker color than the ultramarine blue on its own. It's more like a violet. I would say it's quite close to Carbazole violet on its own, and that is probably to do with the quinacridone rose giving it a nice tint. So from this sheet I would only stick to the ultramarine colors. This is the second sheet. Unfortunately, we've had some bleed through of these two colors onto there, so we'll see how that affects the result. This sheet contains the second half of what's already on my palette, plus the new colors I am contemplating on adding onto my palette. So let's have a look to see how they've fared. Ooh, whoa. I'm going to go through the color names first. This is Indigo by Holbein. This is Phthalo Blue Yellow Shade by Holbein. This is Phthalo Turquoise by Daniel Smith. This is Phthalo Green Blue Shade by Daniel Smith. Hooker's Green by Holbein. Phthalo Green Yellow Shade by Daniel Smith. Permanent Green No. 1 by Holbein. Green Gold by Daniel Smith. Rich Green Gold by Daniel Smith. Perylene Maroon by Daniel Smith. Moon Glow by Daniel Smith. Shadow Violet by Daniel Smith. Lunar Blue by Daniel Smith. Cascade Green by Daniel Smith, and Perylene Green by Daniel Smith. What I am noticing in this sheet is clearly this bottom row. These two colors contain ultramarine blue in their mix, so it's not surprising that the lines came out really well. These two have the same combination of viridian and ultramarine blue. However, this one has anthraquinone red in the mix, and this has Pyrrole Orange in the mix, and you can see the difference of the two colors in the background color that has spread. This is slightly more orange, this is more reddy purpley color. The surprising results are these two. Now these two, neither of them contain ultramarine blue, so it's not that that's doing it. This one is lunar blue and it contains phthalo blue and ferrosulfuric oxide. This one is cascade green and it contains again phthalo blue but then iron oxide. So I am thinking maybe the oxides do a similar job as the ultramarine blues. Now, as much as the Perylene maroon or the Perylene green didn't work as producing these lovely lines, can I just say how beautiful this combination of texture looks. I think as much as it doesn't work for line producing, this combination of Perylene maroon and Perylene green will be a really interesting thing to try in a painting. This is the third and final sheet we have. It's a combination of some more colors that I'm considering to add to the new palette, plus a couple of manganeses to try and other colors that I just picked up because they looked interesting for this experiment. So let's peel them. I think this is the most interesting page we've had so far. The colors are Green Apatite Genuine by Daniel Smith, Undersea Green by Daniel Smith, Manganese Blue Hue by Daniel Smith, Genuine Manganese Blue by Dan, Mineral Violet by Holbein, Cobalt Blue by Holbein, Cobalt Green by Sennelier, Caput Mortuum by Sennelier, Burnt Umber by Holbein, Imidazolo Brown by Holbein, Rose Madder by Holbein, Bright Violet by Holbein, and Transparent Red Oxide by Daniel Smith. The Green Apatite Genuine does an amazing job of producing the lines. It is very, very dark, and it also has this lovely light pale green background to it. because this is a prismatic paint, we don't really know the chemical constitution of what's in the paint, so I don't know what's causing the lines to happen, but it's an amazing one, and I think just for this effect alone it's going into my new palette. With the Undersea Green, it's very interesting. It has this much lighter but definite texture of lines. It does have Ultramarine Blue in it, which would explain a lot of this, and then it also has a Quinacridone orange in it, which would explain the background. If you want a more subtle effect of the lines, I think this is a lovely one to try. Manganese Blue hue didn't do much. However, the genuine Manganese Blue is amazing. It is a really, really intense, lovely blue, and I really, really like it. Unfortunately, it's quite hard to get hold of the genuine Manganese Blue on its own. I don't think you can now, apart from if you buy it from Dan from PenholderArtUK. Very beautiful though, so thank you so much for sending me this, Dan. Mineral Violet is also very interesting. It's not as strong as these lines, however there is a definite line to it. Mineral Violet does contain a ultramarine blue, so not surprising, but it's a more subtle one because it has two other pigments, the quinacridone magenta and the benzimidazoline brown, so it's a much more subtle effect, so that is a good one to go for if you want that kind of texture. The Cobalt Blue is a cobalt aluminum oxide, so again it's an oxide and it's a nice subtle texture. Cobalt Green, on the other hand, is completely nuts and beautiful color. It is a Selenium's one is a PB36, which is a cobalt chromium oxide. You can see that I scribbled some details out. That is because I was first going to use a Holbein one until I realized it's actually a combination of 3 pigments, and so I went for the Sennelier's one, which is a single pigment of cobalt chromium oxide, which was what we wanted for this test. Caput Mortuum is a PR101, which is a calcinated synthetic red iron oxide, and it does a very beautiful job of producing a nice strong brown and reddy brown lines. Burnt Umber by Holbein is a PBR7, which is a natural iron oxide, and not surprisingly the iron oxides do really well. This one is Bright Violet by Holbein, and I really wanted to include this in the test because it's a combination of the Ultramarine Violet PV15 with a BV7, which is a fluorescent blue violet dye, and because it has the Ultramarine Violet in it, it does a fantastic job of producing this intense purple violet line. Now, bearing in mind that the fluorescent blue violet is a non-light fast fugitive color, so this will be only good for paintings that you're going to paint and then scan to produce prints from, but it is a lovely, lovely violet color as well. Finally, we have Transparent Red Oxide from Daniel Smith, and this is PR101 again, which is the same pigment as this Caput Mortuum, the calcinated synthetic red iron oxide, and not surprisingly it does very well. In conclusion, I would say that the colors that work best or produces the most intense lines are colors that contain ultramarine blue PB29, which are these colors, and also these. Next one would be colors that contain iron oxides, which would be these colors and this one. I'm being very careful in not stating that all oxides would work because I've only tested the iron oxides and also the ferrosulfuric oxide of the lunar blue. So for me to be able to say oxides work, I would have to do more tests. However, iron oxides work and ferrosulfuric oxide will work for you. Another great one would be the green Apatite Genuine. This is a Primatech colour. I can't say for sure that all Primatech pigments will do this. I can only say that green Apatite Genuine will do this. If and when I get the chance to buy more Primatech paints, I will definitely be repeating this test to see how it goes. Genuine manganese blue will work, but don't bother with manganese blue hues, which are most commercially available watercolor paints that are called manganese blue. Also, the cobalts do very well, especially the PV36, the cobalt chromium oxide does a beautiful job. And if you want a more subtle effect, then the cobalt blue, which is the PB28 cobalt aluminum oxide, will do a lovely job. Because this was such a fun experiment to do, I'm sure I will be doing this again with different kinds of paint, so I will report back on the results of those as well. If you have any theories about what makes certain colors work and not work, then please let me know in the comments below, because I'm not a chemist. I don't really know why these certain colors are working and others aren't. Also, if you have any suggestion of pigments and paints you want me to try this method with, then please let me know. I'll make a note of it and include it in future tests. If this video was useful and interesting to you, then please consider hitting the like button, because that will help me tremendously in growing this channel. If you haven't subscribed to this channel and you like what you're seeing, then please also hit the subscribe button and the notification bell icon. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next video.